Welcome to the Goal Podcast, news and commentary from Gun Owners Action League, your leading voice for the Massachusetts gun owner.
I'm Jeff. Across the table is Garrett.
What's up, man?
It feels like, the calm after the storm, I guess.
There's busy, coming weeks. Down after, yeah. Been pretty busy the last few weeks. We had the event, had stuff going on. And then we did got
out for a little hunting that Monday.
Got out for a little hunting. Yeah.
So how did it go for you?
As you know, it went pretty well for me. I bagged my first spring turkey.
Yeah, you're on the boards,
cool.
Man.
On the boards. Woo-hoo.
What do you think about turkey hunting as opposed to deer hunting?
Well, I got to tell you, the turkey hunt lasted far less time than the deer hunts usually do. We each had birds down on the ground, before 6 a.m.?
6 o'clock-ish.
I was like, wow. Deer hunting should be like this.
Yeah. No, I feel like a successful deer hunt is much more rewarding, but a successful turkey hunt is much more exciting.
I'll buy that. Yeah, because it's like
the calling and
because it's a little more it's a little more interactive than just kind of yeah. Well, yeah, we had birds down around 6 o'clock in the morning, and then we're getting ready to pack up and bag out, and we're like, what's that sound over there? What's going on in them? So yep. Couldn't get them to come back, but they were there. They were there for like a good long time, trying to call them in, that was stressful. Yeah.
Procedurally speaking, it was probably a mistake to pull the truck up to pick up the turkeys, and then I think they just weren't going to come down towards the truck.
Yeah, but we were like, we kind of halfway expected the hunt to be over with, but because I didn't know they were there. Found their way back out, and them little suckers, they were like, it's like they know where the danger zone is, because they were just outside that line where you could reasonably take a poke at them. Like, nope. No, we're just going to stay right around here.
Oh yeah, and as the season goes on, they'll get even more wary, and they're not
stay up higher and stay up in the
they're not particularly smart animals, but they survive for a reason. Yeah. Like the old ones survive because they don't make stupid mistakes.
Was it Gene Hackman said in Crimson Tide? He said, "Dumb as a fence post, but very intuitive." Right? Makes sense. And those of you who can watch the movie and get the rest of that quote, I'm not going to say that in public forum. But no, it was a good time. I appreciate the offer to come out and bag a bird. They turned in a pretty good turkey soup.
Yeah, and they're not, they taste all right.
They taste all right.
Ugly as sin, but
oh my God, they're ugly up close. But yeah, my first bird, right on the boards.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you. How'd the turkey hunt go for you?
Yeah, and then I went out this past Monday and, sat in roughly the same spot, put my decoys out a little bit in a different location.
Yeah.
The group of turkeys, so the group of males that we've kind of scouted out.
Is it the same group?
Yeah, they like to congregate in one kind of general patch in the space that we hunt. So they were a little more further behind me, but I managed to call in a group of 3 young fellas across the hill, and they came, and I'm pretty sure one of them attempted to make sweet morning turkey love to
to one of your decoys,
to a decoy. And then as they started to work their way off, I was kind of back and forth of, do I try to call in one of the other toms that was more behind me, and
one of the older toms?
I just decided, you know what? It's like if the good hunting Lord is going to put food in front of me, then far be it for me to.
Right. Who am I to say no?
To start getting greedy about, it's not, got to be the right turkey. So I picked one out, not the one that just had his, has good morning
business going.
And that one ended up in the back of the truck.
Nice. And this was this last Monday.
Yeah, this past Monday. So I've had 2 Mondays in a row with 2 a.m. alarm clock.
Yeah, but did you get him right in the beginning of the day too? So you're like,
yeah, right around 6:30 or so.
Right on.
Early enough.
So you're tagged out on spring turkeys.
Tagged out on spring birds. Beauty. John's going out this coming Monday. It was a tough. I John and I were originally going to go together.
Yeah.
And with the rain and a couple other things, John wasn't going to be able to make it. And so I was just, all right, I'll go up by myself and
go bag one.
Have a camouflage poncho. I put it on all over my
Monday morning.
Sat out in the rain, got a little bit soaked, but
right on. Congratulations, man.
Those are some of the fun mornings. It's like the miserable hunting trips that end up working out are kind of some of the fun.
That's all right
for me,
but good. So Monday morning I was at work because Sunday night I was at ACDC at Gillette.
Nice. Still hear the ringing in the ears?
When you like go inside, because we had club level seats, which, if you're going to go to a concert, that's a pretty good way to go. So when you go inside to go get another beer or whatever, as soon as that door closes and the sound drops like 80 decibels, you're like, oh my God.
No disrespect to AC or DC.
Oh man. No, but it was a pretty good show. Show. I mean, Sunday night concerts, always a drag, especially when you're like me, you get up at 4:00 in the morning. So Monday was kind of a slog for me, but, no, it was a good show.
I haven't seen AC/DC live, but I heard they still put on a hell of a show.
He did all right. He did pretty good. I mean, Brian Johnson's 77?
Yeah, but they're still
crying out loud,
still crushing it.
Yeah, Angus Young can still pick it. Anyway, right on. It's a good show.
It's a good thing they keep the songs sort of simple.
The songs are pretty simple.
We are being joined by Jim Wallace, Executive Director of Gun Owners Action League, in a few minutes.
Good stuff. So what's going on in news?
In gun-related news?
Yeah, in actual gun stuff.
Surprise, surprise, there's no movement on Snope v. Brown or Ocean State Tactical versus Rhode Island.
Wah, wah.
I actually logged on today and did the count. Snope has been distributed for conference 13 times since the petition was filed August 21st last year. Ocean State Tactical has been distributed for conference 14 times since they filed their petition August 2nd of last year.
I'm pretty sure that one of these, it's either like this time or next time around, will be an actual record. Like an actual record for the number of times it's been rescheduled.
Honestly, I don't know.
Yeah, I think I read that someplace.
But it is certainly bizarre to see that can get kicked down the road the way it has been. I'm
having trouble imagining what other case they might be waiting for, to win its way up so that they could combine the case and handle it that way. I'm at a loss as to why they're continuing to ignore these cases, but...
Well, I mean, I think it's hard to say that they're ignoring them because they are still keeping them alive. I mean, it would be just as simple to deny cert, vacate, remand. There's a lot of things that they could do that would essentially clear it off the books.
Yeah, you're right.
So there's a reason they're not clearing it off the books in the same token that there's a reason that they have not taken it either.
Yeah.
What that is, I don't know. That's certainly above my pay grade.
Yeah, that's like inside baseball stuff.
When I shake the magic 8 ball, it says come back later.
Comes back. Yeah, come back for the 15th relisting.
But hey, I mean, we're keeping an eye on it every Monday. It's all right, let's check and see if it's there. It's still not. But there's other stuff going on in Supreme Court news, right?
Well, so with the Supreme Court and like the federal Department of Justice kind of in general, I mean, some of it's good, some of it's not so good. It just, all right, maybe qualify the not so good part. So a couple episodes ago, we mentioned that Pam Bondi's Department of Justice, they recently published rules that took the authority for, restoration of rights, of gun rights for prohibitions from the ATF and brought it back under the Department of Justice, under the Attorney General.
Okay. So if you had become a statutorily prohibited person,
yes,
you could appeal to get your firearms rights back.
That's correct.
Which was originally under the DOJ, then it became under the ATF's umbrella, and now it's back under the DOJ umbrella.
Exactly right. Yes, but exactly right. So now that it's back under the Department of Justice, so we look at that and we go, okay, well that's a pretty good thing. This last week, there was a list of 10 people released that have had their rights restored under the new scheme, including actor and producer Mel Gibson, right? Because he had some issues a few years ago. So some people are getting their rights back. Okay. Take that for what it seems to be worth. But when you look at this and you look at the other things that are going on right now, it almost seems like You could make the argument that this is like within, Trump's personality, but he seems to be consolidating these kind of administrative powers to the executive chair, right? Rather than delegating to the ATF or delegating to agencies. He wants to bring it right up close under the Department of Justice. It seems that way. So the Department of Justice, in the person of the Solicitor General, John Sauer, who is, I think, the fourth highest ranking person in the Department of Justice, has written a response to a petition for review in Hunt versus United States. This case is a challenge to the federal ban on gun possession for crimes with a potential sentence of more than 1 year, right? So kind of in the same vein. So in his response, Solicitor General Sauer wrote basically that the Department of Justice's new policy, right? This new policy that they just wrote in reviewing firearms disabilities under 18 U.S.C. 922 kind of made the petition and disagreement among the appeals courts irrelevant. And he actually argued that the Supreme Court should not bother reviewing this case because what he's saying basically is that, we got a new policy. We're good. We have it. We'll handle it. Don't bother, don't bother with this case. He's telling that to the Supreme Court, which is a little bit of an unusual move.
So the question becomes whether the policy that permits an avenue for someone to get their rights restored, does that then nullify a lawsuit that's saying that the law is on its own is unconstitutional? It kind of seems
that way. This is, maybe this is kind of an esoteric way to think about it, but in the absence of allowing some of these things to get to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court saying this is unconstitutional, that's it. Right. What the Trump administration seems to be saying is, come to us. We'll pick and choose which ones we think the Supreme Court should listen to.
Well, the question is whether or not the law is constitutional as a law.
Yes.
Regardless of whether there's a policy that exists to forgive someone for having violated that law.
Yes.
The law needs to be able to stand on its own merit. So
right.
I don't think that the Solicitor General Sauer really has the position to say that the Supreme Court should not look at the constitutionality of the law on its own.
Yeah. It seems like the Trump administration is trying to maintain the status quo as far as the law goes, but they want to have that authority to grant remission whenever they kind of feel like it. Well, but they don't want to change 18 U.S.C. 922, which is what actually should happen. In keeping everything on an administrative level instead of changing the actual law, what they're doing is A, keeping that authority to themselves, and B, leaving open the possibility that some future administration will change it just on a whim.
From a principled perspective, I would disagree with Solicitor General Sauer's opinion. I disagree with the idea of one administration saying that we want the law there so we can use it when we want to use it, but we also want to have a way for us to go around it when it suits our political purposes. So yeah, that's one where, there's a whole lot of things I wish the Supreme Court would review, would rule on, would clarify based on my personal priority list. And obviously, I'm not running their docket. Otherwise, Snope would have been done by now. Ocean State Tactical would have been done by now. And there's a whole lot of other things.
Nothing but 2A cases.
So, yeah, I guess, like you said, on one hand, it's good that there are some folks that are finally getting their rights restored for things that really had nothing to do with firearms in the first place. Yeah. Nonviolent offenses like
Range, for example. It was food stamp fraud in the 90s. He should not have his gun rights blown away. So that's good for him, but again, some future president may decide that
it ultimately comes down to people should not be having their rights restored because I like this one person more than I like that one person. There really should be some objective standard to look at and say, okay, these are the things for which you lose your rights for, and these are the things you don't lose your rights for, and figure out some sort of thing around that.
So in maneuvering this way, it seems like I said, they're trying to keep the law in place, but, reserve to themselves the power to basically do what they want on the federal law level anyway. But the Department of Justice also took the kind of unusual step of urging the Supreme Court to take up the challenge to Hawaii's ban on carrying in all publicly accessible private property without permission of the landowner first. So as we know, right, a bunch of the Bruin tantrum states passed things like default prohibitions on private property. This is one that actually got passed, like what they were trying to do here with 4420. Hawaii actually passed it. It's kind of making its way up through the courts, and the Department of Justice, Pam Bondi's Department of Justice, took the step of actually writing a response to the Supreme Court about a case that the federal government isn't a party to. So they've basically invited themselves in and said, Supreme Court, you should take a look at this case.
Well, certainly the Department of Justice can file an amicus brief on behalf of whoever they choose to, which would be fantastic in this case if they would write it, in favor of the Second Amendment. The case is Wolford v. Hawaii or Wolford v. Lopez. I'm not sure exactly
would be the Attorney General, the state Attorney General. So it's, I've seen it written. I've seen it written out both ways.
Yeah, we are starting to see Department of Justice and a federal executive that is sort of in favor of Second Amendment rights.
They're making the right noises. I mean, what was it? Trump today or yesterday in his budget recommendations wanted to cut the ATF's budget by 28%. I'm like, that's fabulous. Only 72% to go.
Well, and that's one of those things where I'm less concerned about their budget and more concerned about what they do with it. Are there, do they need to have, enforcement of laws? Absolutely. Do they need to deal with firearms trafficking? Absolutely. Do they need to be wasting time and money jamming people up over clerical errors? I really don't think so.
That is exact. And
do they need to be kicking in the doors of airport executives and shooting him in front of his family with no knock because of a no knock warrant?
Yeah.
And that's one of those things where it's like, I would rather them be well funded and competent in doing their job correctly than underfunded and not able to do their job properly and then just letting that lead to more problems and more rough meetings.
I'd prefer they didn't exist, but if they're going to exist, so part of Trump's budget recommendation, and he said in words that we want to refocus to actual, gun trafficking and all of that stuff and not leaning on people in little FFLs because somebody put the wrong word down on a form somewhere.
Yeah. And, and fair enough. It's going to happen sooner or later where, the Second Amendment community, we routinely say, listen, it's not the lawful gun owner. It's the criminals. It's the firearms trafficking.
Yep.
Sooner or later, someone's going to go down that road and we need to see results. So that's why I say, I'm not opposed to the funding. I would love to see the results. Combat the firearms trafficking, the gang violence, really go after it where we say, listen, it's the same networks of recidivist criminals. It's hyper concentrated, very small pockets of people that are causing the problem.
Yep.
It's not mass communities. It's not whole demographics of people. It's even when you go into neighborhoods with extraordinarily high crime rates, you're talking about areas of 1 or 2 or 3 square blocks where the majority of the problems are happening.
Yeah.
That's where they need to go.
It's very concentrated.
And sooner or later, we're going to have to see results from it too. So,
in one final piece of good news, the Supreme Court declined to hear Minnesota's appeal. They were trying to uphold their law that banned under 21s from getting handgun permits. So the Supreme Court shot that down, which means what the hell is it? Is it the 8th Circuit? I don't know. It's whatever circuit court Minnesota is in. Yeah, so that ruling stands, which means adults under 21 can get handgun permits in Minnesota. So I guess it's only going to be applicable to that circuit, but it's a decent precedent. It's a decent precedent that people nationwide will be able to call on.
Yep, and if different circuits come up with different rulings on a similar issue, then that makes it more ripe for a Supreme Court ruling. So
becomes Supreme Court fodder.
You see it eventually come up one day as like, can you buy firearms or not at what age?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, our feelings on it. If you're old enough to be an adult, be responsible for your actions, fight for your country and so forth, you ought to be old enough to purchase and carry a firearm.
Which that actually, so one of the things that we were going to talk about for this episode. So as we approach the 2026 election and the ballot initiative to repeal Chapter 135, we're going to be met with an onslaught of misinformation, amongst the neighborhoods, and sometimes, not from malice, just uninformed, uneducated folks that don't understand the firearms word.
Some malice, but
well, the malice comes in the intentional disinformation campaigns that are going to come from gun control activists and those who wish to be tyrants to their own right. So some of the direct talking points that they're going to talk about is the whole thing about like firearms are the leading cause of death amongst children, where they lump in anyone under the age of 20 into the blanket category of children.
And they also remove babies from age 1 and under. So the actual demographic response, the result is heavily skewed towards
toddlers to 20 years old.
Yeah.
And really the lion's share is in the
16, 17, 18, 19.
to 20 group.
Yeah.
But that's going to raise,
nobody wants to say it, but it's because of gangbangers.
It's going to raise interesting questions, especially regarding this, when it talks about, okay, well, what constitutes an adult here?
Yeah.
Because if you're going to be adult enough to buy a firearm, or you're an adult enough to vote, to sign up for hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans, all these things.
Right.
But going back to the misinformation thing. So in the upcoming months, we're going to talk about, kind of each major talking point that the most likely direct talking points that are going to come from the gun control activist side. So specifically school shootings, the claim that firearms are the leading cause of death amongst children, and the rate of gun violence in America. So we're going to try to give you the actual information on the truth behind these lies that are being promoted, that are sure to be told around the state, that are going to give the folks that are on the fence are going to hear that information. We need not alternative information. We need true factual information to go out there. So there's certainly going to be the stuff out there designed to convince you and your neighbors to willingly give up your fundamental civil rights. But we're going to try to give you the correct information. So when someone does say, hey, I'm all in favor of gun control, you can say, hey, listen, here's the reality of the world. Yeah.
You will be armed with the actual facts instead of the emotional responses.
Which, unfortunately, and this is what we're going to find out, is the gun control side comes from a place of emotion. Mm-hmm. The Second Amendment side comes from a place of objective fact. You can't logic someone out of a position they didn't use logic to get into.
No.
So it's going to be important on the Second Amendment community to also recognize that that the emotional appeal needs to be there as well.
Yeah. Yes. You're not going to logic somebody out of that position. So you're going to need to,
So it also comes down to the personal stories, the reasons why firearms need to be there, the positive experiences. And it was interesting. We had a group chat. So we have a group chat of all the goal folks and board members and everything like that. And found out an interesting thing today. Mike and Carrie Ann were up at the State House, and they found out the hard way that you used to be able to check in pepper spray and take it with you when you leave.
Yeah.
That is now no longer allowed. You are not allowed to bring pepper spray into that building, period. Full stop.
Right. Which means you can't even check it, which means you can't have it when you're walking around Boston and planning to go to the State House. So if for whatever reason you happen to be a criminal and you listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
Now you know, everybody going to the State House and everybody coming out is a soft target.
Every single person that walks into or out of that State House is completely and utterly unarmed. They have no tools and no methods to defend themselves. They are left to their own hands and skills.
They are not allowed to be prepared to defend themselves. Unbelievable. But that's par for the course for Massachusetts. Here we are online. We have the big man, Jim Wallace, Executive Director, Gun Owners Action League, the man himself, joining us remotely. How's it going? That well.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I think we're all feeling that way this week.
Oh my Lord. Well, you didn't spend a week in Atlanta.
Atlanta. Hot Atlanta.
It's like Wayne. Remember the Wayne's World movie? I'm in Delaware.
Yeah. I joke about that when Jeff has to go for training. Delaware.
I'm in Delaware.
So you are just back. Yeah.
Yeah. Just spent the week in Atlanta at the NRA Annual Meeting. And, oh my God, I got my steps in. Those things are so huge. Those facilities, whatever you want to call them, where they hold these things.
Yeah.
It's like, well, the hotel's attached right to it. Yeah, by a half-mile walkway. Yeah. And by the time you get in there and you walk a half mile and realize, oh, crap, it was on the other side of this thing. So you have to walk all the way back. Literally, I met Mike Harris at one point, and he was literally in the same room and couldn't find me. I keep trying to direct him. I'm like, see the big sign? He's like, yeah, I'm right under it. Well, turn around. I see thousands. It's like, okay, never mind.
Not that easy to miss.
Yeah, the NRA website said it was 14 acres worth of floor space.
Well, that's just the floor space. That doesn't include all of the ancillary rooms where they hold like little seminars on, guns of World War II and, how to get out from underneath an attorney general that just wants to love you to death with lawfare and, whatever else might be going on. And then the board, thank God I'm not on the board anymore. But, I still had commitments to committee meetings, which were in the hotel, but they were in another part of the hotel. It's like, oh my God, somebody give me a bourbon
and a sippy cup.
It was quite a week. I mean, we had 3 days of meetings, committee meetings, before the big event started. So I'm still, I guess I'm still on bylaws because they haven't appointed the new committee, but I've been really trying to work the bylaws for the NRA for over a year, and I was the only one that had done a deep dive on them. And, when I showed him to Mike Harris, he uses this same description as the mass gun laws. It's a series of dirty Band-Aids over a wound nobody can remember. So that's, that's about the size of it.
It seems,
and even working with, the board, legal counsel, and the new compliance officer, who's great to work with. And, they were on lockstep with me on, okay, this stuff shouldn't even be in the bylaws. And there was a few things we had to fix because they were in conflict with new stuff. And oh my God, trying to get those changes to the old guard that's still around. Oh, I think that would send the wrong message. And it's like, please. So we got done what we needed to get done, but it should have been so much easier than it was because I had to redraft stuff to please people. And I was like, just get rid of it. We don't need it. Well, no, we should. Oh God. Okay.
But it's always been there. We can't.
Well, their description was you're taking a sledgehammer to something you should be taking a scalpel to.
No.
So when I came back for the second meeting with the redraft, I said, okay, I took a scalpel to the gangrenous leg for you. Here it is.
Yeah, right. Right. Like we're going to use a scalpel to excise these entire sections.
Yeah.
How about that.
So, but it was good. There was a lot at stake leading up to the board meeting on, let's see, when was that? Monday, which I didn't have to sit through this time. I sat in to watch a few things, and as soon as they went into executive session,
you're like,
I said, bye, suckers.
See ya.
Because I already sat through, 3 15-hour board meetings in the last year. Just, you know what? I'm done.
Holy moly.
But, I did 5 years on the board, so I'm happy. That's one thing we need to address at some point is a term limit for the NRA board. There are people there that have been on the board for 40 years.
That's nuts.
40 years.
That's nuts. Yeah. Like I'm generally in favor of reasonably generous terms and everything, but I am hugely in favor of term limits. 40 years is just crazy.
Well, I'll tell you what, when I'm that old, I'm going to sit on a dock with a bourbon and a fishing rod. I ain't even going to bait the hook. Leave me alone.
No bites. I don't know what's going on.
No, I don't know what's going on here. But long and short of it was there was some, as always, there was some pretty angry talk and accusations back and forth and things like that. But in the end, we've got a solid leadership team. Bill Bockenberg is the new president.
Yep.
Of the NRA, and Bill knows what he's doing. He's a big business guy. He also does a lot for wounded veterans and so forth. Mark Vaughn is the new first vice president.
Oh, right on. Okay.
He's from Oklahoma.
We had him on the show.
We had him on when he was second VP.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
He's moved up in the world. I guess he can thank us for that.
Yeah. So, Bill's from Pennsylvania. Mark's from Oklahoma. And then second VP is now Rocky Marshall in Texas, I believe. And we've got a good, solid team. Doug Hamlin got reelected as the EVP, so that's awesome.
Very good.
The only holdover was John Frazier as secretary.
He's still kind of one of the old guard guys.
Well, he was part of the court actions.
Okay.
Because technically, as secretary, he signed, legal documents for accounting.
Yeah.
And his excuse, one way or the other, was, "I'm not an accountant." The people who are handed it to me and said, "This is it." I'm like, "What am I going to do?" So, I'm not going to. But the other thing, too, is that the people who just want a scorched earth, it was kind of important that he actually stay, even though it was a tight race for that position.
Yeah.
Because his second in command, Stephanie Daniels, who really ran the NRA, we always know people like Angie, right? They actually run the show. Right. The guy at the top's just like, "Hey, what's going on?" But she retired. And, so it was a little bit important maybe to have some continuity. And I think that's what most of the board looked at was, if you start that secretary's position from scratch with no help from somebody who's been there for how many years, it could be very difficult.
I guess that's fair for the time being anyway.
Yeah. I think we're on solid footing.
Good.
It's kind of interesting with the sea change there now. We're still not out of the woods. The NRA is still not out of the woods financially because of the massive hit we took from an attorney that I find questionable.
I just read something this week about that. Things are a little less financially, solid than maybe they ought to be. But then again, it's going to take time to turn the ship around, right? Like you said, and like Doug Hamlin said when we had him on, it's going to take some time.
Yeah, well, that was part of Letitia James's strategy, was to bankrupt us.
Sure.
Just keep dragging this thing out and bankrupt us. And she came close. She came real close. Of course, now it appears the shoe's on the other foot.
She's got financial issues of her own, yeah.
The Department of Justice went, kind of interesting, this real estate deal you just made, huh?
Yeah. What do they say about the nail that sticks out?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're the ones that, have excelled at lawfare in the last 8 years, and now they're like, "What? Wait a minute, you can't do that to us." So anyway, that's unconstitutional. Oh, now you like the Constitution, huh?
Suddenly we care.
Yeah, we've got a long way to go, the NRA, to regain trust, and I totally understand that, and I get it. There are people out there that just won't stop no matter what. They want to hammer. And it's like, guys, we know it's over. It's done. You're not going to get blood out of a stone. You just can't keep going. Eventually, we got to turn this thing around, and that's where we're going to focus now. The interesting thing is, you guys know I've been doing a ton of research on the whole membership thing. So it's a situation that every membership organization, not just 2A people, have to come to grips with in the new world. And trying to find out what value means to a younger group that will only give you 1/6 of a second of their attention to decide if they want to move on to the next 3 seconds. So it's something else, and it's actually an opportunity as well to not just rebrand, but maybe reinvent how this whole thing works. With a massive membership organization. So it's going to be very intriguing to see what happens. A lot of people are focused on what the NRA can provide now. And that's something that needs to be done too. Again, I'm not on the board anymore, but I've been threatened with committee assignments, and I've threatened to not remember how to open my email or physical mail. So, but I'm more than happy to help from behind the scenes. It's just, I'm not going to sit through 15-hour board meetings anymore.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And moving forward, that's the other thing too, is that when it comes to programs, what does the NRA offer other than ILA, which is the lobbying, the political side, but the program side, and when we were all asking about it, geez, where we're gonna land with all this. I've been a board member for 5 years. I had no idea the NRA had like 120 programs that they were trying to run at the same time.
Wow.
And it was like, really? And they mentioned a couple. I'm like, who runs that?
Like nobody, apparently.
Yeah, apparently, right? There's some guy who's trying to get his pension in a closet down in the basement
right.
with a $5 budget.
Yeah.
So
he's got like 15 programs that he's trying to run. Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, even training, education and training is its own division. It has 4 people.
Yeah, that's been kind of a sore spot for a while now. They're going to need to do something there.
Yeah. Well, so what we're going to do, I think, at some point very soon is do like a triage of all the programs. And for the most part, my colleague in Pennsylvania, Todd Ellis, came up with this term. It's a 3-legged stool. You've got ILA, which is the political side, education and training, and competitions. That's what built the NRA originally.
Yeah.
And we need to get back to that. And it's kind of interesting because some of the old guard were really scared and they verbalized it. Well, you guys are going to get rid of competition if you get the leadership.
No.
Who told you that?
No. That's the NRA's charter, man. That's
sounds a little like fear-mongery to me.
That's like Creedmoor. That's how they got started. Yeah. No way.
Well, you also have to keep in mind that, there was a move to bring us to Dallas, Texas.
Oh, yeah.
And even though it was never public as to what that was going to be, they were going to get rid of all of the programs and just become a lobbying organization with like 40 staff.
In Dallas. In Texas.
In Dallas.
Crying out loud.
Yeah.
Great. Great.
But that's gone. That's
halfway
gone.
Across the country from the actual lawmakers in some little strip mall somewhere. Yeah, what a great idea.
Yeah. The sad thing was that the building or the part of the building that they were about to sign a lease on, one of the directors looked at the lease, who happened to be an attorney, and said, "Do you guys know this building's a gun-free zone?"
Maybe somebody should look at the lease first.
Just a touch of iron on top.
They were in such a rush to move to Dallas, but it's remember that? Remember Screaming Sam Kennison?
Oh yeah,
they're in a desert. Dallas is literally a desert. Why is anybody there in Dallas? I mean, it's a desert. No wonder the Cowboys are terrible. They live in a desert, for crying out loud.
Well, it seems like it seems like the NRA is at least getting to a point where it's not looking at just year-to-year survival, but looking at what is a 2-year, a 5-year, a 10-year plan. So it's nice to hear the optimism where people are talking about their plans for the future in a way that like they're planning on being around in the future.
Rather than just wholly concentrating on staunching the bleeding. They're actually, it looks like they're actually trying to plan for going forward. Yeah, I think you're right.
It's like when Dad buys a new lawnmower. Oh, he's going to be around for at least one more season anyway, right? He's not leaving. Otherwise, you wouldn't buy a new lawnmower. So it's imperative that we do that. I mean, like it, love it, hate it, whatever. The NRA has always offered what so many of these other organizations have tried to mimic, but just haven't been able to deliver.
Yeah.
So I think it's imperative that we get back to the basics and we get good at what we used to do, meaning the NRA.
Yeah.
And bring back one of the big things, oh my Lord, is bringing back education and training as the standard for the NRA, because frankly, right now they're not. So we need to make that happen again. Other organizations have surpassed NRA training as not just being the standard, because I don't know if you can consider them the standard, but it's what people want. They look at all these other organizations and go, "Oh, the training's phenomenal. I don't like anything else they do, but their training is great."
Yeah.
Because we've never had, I told you there's only 4 people running education and training. Well, for the last 5 years, there was only 2. 2 people to run.
Wow.
And once a month, those 2 people were gone for a week at a time to teach the training counselor courses, which were a week long. Yeah. So you're only 2 education and training employees were teaching a course 1 week out of every month. not
2 employees 75% of the time.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another movie line, isn't it? It works 60%, 100%
60% of the time, it works every time.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, it's and frankly, those people are drastically underpaid.
That's like that should be like a junior executive kind of level job. That's
you think?
Yeah.
You think?
Wow.
Yeah. So if anybody screams about what these guys are trying to do, talk about drinking from a fire hose.
Well,
it's just insane. It's amazing they've actually kept anything going. But we're moving on.
Yep.
We're going to act quickly. And I greatly appreciate everybody that has supported us through this time because it's been a time. And, the naysayers out there, and to some extent I don't blame them, but, one of the things I got, well, you guys should have known. Well, let me ask you a question. If we asked them for something, they gave it to us, but it wasn't real. So, and how are you supposed to know that unless you have access to all of the computers, all of the accounting, all of the receipts, and you dabble in forensic accounting? I mean,
As a hobby,
Yeah. Let me just sit down with these 10 million lines of code and accounting, and it's like, guys, there's no way you would know sitting on a board.
Yeah.
And, but there are certainly people that were there that covered things up, but they are, getting rid of.
It's very easy to judge with the luxury of hindsight, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Yep. Well, the other thing too, and again, to some extent, I can't blame them because they look at people in those positions. Now, we all know Wayne LaPierre was way overpaid and was taking advantage of all kinds of things. But they also look at things from their point of view, which, hey, the average person that belongs to Goal and the NRA, they're blue collar folks. They never made $1 million in their life. They're never going to make $1 million in their life, and that's okay. I mean, I came from nothing.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, we need to talk, guys, later at the board meeting.
Oh, you want to continue making nothing? I like it. That's it.
So
it's on tape.
Yeah. When you tell a blue collar worker, person could be a plumber, they could be a whatever. Mechanic. That $30 or $40 dues, we pay them, $500,000 a year. And how is that possible? Well, when's the last time you were responsible for raising $100 million a year?
Yeah.
That's just the way of business. So you get what you pay for at that level. And I know it's hard to swallow, but
it is a lot of money, but you have to have somebody who's capable of doing that.
It's true. But I think the perspective, it's one of those situations where, the NRA, I think, if you look at it holistically, it's hard to lay blame at somebody else. They made their bed and they have to sleep in it in that sense.
Yeah.
But, when you're dealing with something or a subject that is, a moral issue for some people, a philosophical thing, it's hard to then take that and look at objective metrics, which is one of the things like you have to do as a board of directors. Okay, what's the budget? What's this coming in? What's that coming in?
Yeah, sure.
And you're making those sort of decisions. But, looking over the history, it does feel like, and this is where I agree, where you said some people have fair criticism, is that there was a time when the folks running the show were gun people first who happened to also be business people. And I think it kind of just eventually crept into the idea of it was business people who also happened to be gun people, but the business came first. And, for like you said, the folks that are scraping together their last $30, it's hard to envision spending this to raise that, or some of the decisions that they're making at that kind of level. But that's where I think it's really great where Doug, Mark, and those folks the ones that we've talked to are really focusing on transparency and also clearly communicating things to the members. It's one thing to be transparent, but it's another to actually translate that into something that the average working man, woman, family can understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's one of the first things Doug did in the. I mean, almost immediately, literally, when we first elected him, he took a red eye back to Virginia and got to work. And within weeks, he was going through all the books, and it was kind of interesting. It's like, who's this person? What do they do for us? And what are we paying them?
Wait a minute. What's this? Does he work here? Who's?
Yeah. Well, a lot of it was consultants, and all because that was always their thing that I had a problem with the talent you had on the board, all the different people you had, 76 people, the talent you had.
Yeah.
Why are you hiring consultants? How about you just ask me a question?
Right.
It's
at exorbitant
like
rates. Yeah,
it's like when Holly and I are watching a show on sharks, and there's these college kids, and well, we've studied this behavior for 5 years, and we've concluded. And I said, well, you just should have asked. Somebody would have told you. But it's like all the research we're doing, right, on the next steps for goal.
Sure.
We haven't hired anybody yet. I mean, we are going to hire a company to do a little polling for us, but we haven't hired some big firm to figure this all out. It's just big Jim Dummyhead sitting there in front of a computer going, hey, do they like this? Nope. Okay, note to self. They don't like that.
Big Jim Dummyhead. There you go. He's got a new name. We're going to put that on his jacket.
Well, it's right next to the line item in our budget for a headquarters in Jackman, Maine, but that's, that'll probably be the cheapest thing we ever did.
Oh, man.
It's Doug started cutting to the core right away, which also led to some huge internal fights from the old guard that wanted his skin,
I bet,
wanted his hide because of the people he let go, and he didn't care. So this is all for the best of our members and for the best of the organization. We're staying in Virginia because our building faces the highway coming right out of Washington, D.C.
Yeah,
with that 20, 30-foot NRA sign in your face.
That's a presence, man. Like every lawmaker that drives that little beltway thing right there is going to pass right by the NRA headquarters.
Yep.
Yes.
And
you don't get that in Dallas.
There's two towers, they call them. They're all connected. I don't know why they call them two towers, but they're two towers. And he's consolidating all of the NRA employees into one tower for now. And then he's going to lease out the other tower. And,
right on.
Actually bring in money. So
they got the real estate. I mean, the real estate, the plot of land there in the building's huge.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But anyway.
So anyway, I think we're on the right path. Those of us who were there, I got to tell you, it was over a year ago now. We called ourselves the Patriots, and it was a group of, back then, 8 or 9 people, it grew to 15, that quietly worked behind the scenes to start to make all this happen. Everybody thinks it was this group called the Reformers that were loud and proud, and I'm not ashamed to say we used them as cover because while we were getting things done behind the scenes, they were making the noise, and everybody was pointing at them as the threat. Which they're not the threat, but
that's all right. That's a role too. That's a role too.
Oh yeah.
Oh right.
We worked our tails off, and we got the presidency. It wasn't by a lot. Bill Bachenberg only won by 4 votes.
Wow.
So it was still darn close.
Wow.
But we got there, and it was good to walk out of that room. Number one, very early. It's like
hope you board members have a good time.
Yeah, 4:00 in the afternoon and head to the bar. But if I had been up on the podium or whatever, I would have told them how proud I was to be with a small group of people that, the old guard considers a threat and still considers a threat. But we've accomplished, at least initially, what we set out to accomplish a year ago, which was to secure the leadership. But the fact that, I'm leaving them with an unfinished task in moving forward. And that's when a bunch of them said, well, wait a minute, you're not going anywhere. We're going to throw you on committees. And I'm like, and
sorry.
Which, Kim,
like what? Sorry, you're breaking up a little bit.
Static. They actually put Cam Edwards on the nominating committee, which I thought was cool.
Excellent.
And as soon as I found that out, I called him and said, if you nominate me, I will hunt you down. Nope, leave me off of that sucker. But
you know what? You've done your points. You've done great by the NRA. I mean, the task is always unfinished, right? So you do what you can with the time that you have.
Hell, every time I go to the office, it's still there for goal. So it's like, oh, okay, I guess I got to do one more day.
Yep. One more day. One more day.
Yeah.
Right on.
That's it, guys. We're rocking and rolling. Hope everybody jumps on board and helps us make the improvements that we need to make.
Yeah.
Because that's the next big step. So.
Amen. All right. Shifting gears. Since we got you on the phone here, what's going on with FCAB?
Oh, I'm sorry. Can't hear you. You're breaking up. You said 15 minutes, right? Sorry.
Yeah, that was about 18 minutes ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. FCAB actually is Firearms Control Advisory Board meets again this Friday in the wonderful town of Chelsea, Mass. Which I find not so ironic. Literally, as you turn the corner to go to the office building, there is a huge food distribution center that is always packed.
Oh, yeah?
So, right around the corner is, the government's building, which, by the way, if you walk through that building, it's almost empty. There's hardly anybody in that building.
Huh.
But we have this massive building that's still sitting there empty since COVID. But anyway, that's a whole different thing.
House, yeah.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah.
So I learned at the last meeting, kind of by accident, there was a number of people, 5 or 6 or whatever, in the back of the room. And of course, me being me, I went up and said hi and introduced myself. And they were all from some kind of consulting group called Gartner, Gartner.
Yeah.
And the guy said, I'm from Gardner. I'm like, are you from Gardner, Mass? No. I'm like, you don't make mattresses? Okay, sorry. It's so it's a consulting group that was supposedly hired to start working with the state to get them through Chapter 135. And I'm like, where did that money come from? You guys can't even buy a new licensing machine, for crying out loud.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Pause. Pause. So you're telling me that the 2-year Bruin-proof, unquestionable, bring it on bill that was so important it needed an emergency preamble, the legislature now needs a consulting firm to figure out how to make the law work?
Oh, no, it's the agencies, not the legislature doesn't care. It's the agencies that have no clue.
Oh, the agencies the legislature said, reviewed it, signed off on it, said everything's great.
Yeah, well, that person is still in binders in a basement somewhere, had to use a pen in his mouth to sign the paper that said, we sign off here.
Yeah.
So they are supposedly working. So I chatted with him for a bit, and it turns out one of the ladies is actually a member of one of the Rod and Gun Clubs. So I started chatting about all the things we had questions, and the younger folks around her started making notes like crazy. And I'm like, hey,
what the hell is he talking about? What's he talking? What is that? Yeah.
Here's my card if you want to talk about what's going on.
Right. If your consultants need any consulting done, have them contact the people who've been doing this for 50 years in this state.
That's right. And I only charge, a couple of cheeseburgers and a Diet Coke.
And a handle of 4 roses. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was the funny thing, too, about the NRA when I was down there. I says, I want Doug Hamlin to hire me as a consultant at $10 a year, just so the interwebs would blow up that Wallace was hired as a consultant, but they wouldn't talk about the $10 a year. So this company, I guess, is supposedly going to, they supposedly do technology or whatever that has to happen to make the new registration system, licensing system, garbage systems, work, and we'll see what happens. I'm not sure. I haven't seen the agenda for this Friday yet, so I'm not exactly sure what we're supposed to discuss. We know that the assault style firearms roster, which is a complete fabrication.
Yeah.
Because it does not represent the law whatsoever. It is still a point of contention. The other thing that they're really turning themselves inside out on is I continue to bring up, well, this new registration system that you're going to put in place after spending how much tax dollars for something that is completely going to be useless has to be set up so that people cannot register a firearm that they shouldn't lawfully have in mass. Well, you talk about a deer in headlights when I said that.
Yeah. You're like, what?
So my whole thing was, if your system allows somebody to register a gun that they shouldn't have because of your laws, that's entrapment.
Yeah, that's a bad law.
Systems should say, no, you're not allowed to own that in Massachusetts. The answer I got was, do you know how much that would cost to build such a system?
I don't care.
Don't care.
Yeah. You're proposing to throw people in prison. So, you best get it right.
Yeah, which they're not going to.
No, of course not.
So that's the big point of contention. The other thing we're waiting for, obviously, is the state police to come out with the training requirements. We've been told that basically what they're going to do is still have people use like, the NRA, USCCA, whatever courses are out there.
Yeah.
And then they just need to add these other things at the end of that class so that people can get their, certificate, which will be issued by the state now, not by your instructor.
Yikes.
And yeah, exactly.
6 months after the class, no doubt.
Right. And of course, the other big thing is we're waiting for the state police to come up with a list of states that have similar requirements, licensing requirements to the state of Massachusetts, so that then those people can continue to apply for licenses here as a non-resident or temporary license to carry, as they call it. And I just keep saying, what list? There is not going to be, I don't think, any other state, maybe Illinois, because they have the FOID card as well as, I think, a license to carry or something. But, there's only, 5 states in the country that license long guns, never mind control them like these.
Yeah, like we do here.
So I have no idea how they're going to make that work. So it's...
Well, apparently they don't either, which is why they hired a consulting firm.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, see that there's, how many questions do we still have about this law? And even things like black powder is still not settled.
Right.
And I bring that up and they say, well, we don't know if we're going to bother issuing guidance on that because, it's pretty well said. And
Oh, it's not well said. If people understood it, there wouldn't be so many questions about it.
Right. They're already, we're only 4 months into this and they're already running out of steam.
Yeah.
They just, especially, Glidden, like them, love them, hate them, whatever. He's like, I did this for 25 years trying to figure out Chapter 180.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not spending another 25 years doing this one.
No, it's like, I don't want to do it no more.
Well, that's the big thing with the assault style firearm, BS roster, is it starts off with like a 3 or 4 page preamble of explanation.
Yeah.
And I said, no, that's not going to work. I said, people aren't going to read that. They're
going to look at the list. Yeah, that's it.
Nobody in this room understands that. And even the list, they're going to publish a banned roster, but there are no banned guns in Massachusetts. There are heavily restricted guns, but there are no banned guns.
Yeah, right.
So you're already lying to them if you put a single gun on there. They understand, the agencies understand that what was passed is not tenable. So it just looks to me now like they're dragging things out because it's just not going to work.
Well, the problem is, though, regular people still have to live under this garbage.
Yep.
Under the penalty of going to prison.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We're not talking like, a little baby slap on the, like these come with real consequences.
Yeah.
Even if you don't end up going to prison, you lose your Second Amendment rights forever. For very, very simple mistakes that even the, and I'm going to put the air quotes around it, the experts from the state, they can't give you the right answer.
Well, that's the other thing I've asked off the cuff is the guidance that the secretary is putting out, is that a legal defense? Blank stare.
Yeah.
Blank stare.
They're like,
yeah, we've discussed it before. They can say, well, we're not gonna prosecute this, and we're gonna treat this, we're gonna treat the law the other way. But the law is the law, and it's written the way it's written. So any district attorney, any attorney general can say, I want to throw the book according to the letter of the law, regardless of what guidance an executive branch agency puts out, right?
pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, and then it's up to you to defend yourself. You bring that piece of paper that the secretary put out and say, Your Honor, he told me this. Well, that's not what the law says. Okay. So is there any culpability on the secretary's behalf if that turns out to be the case?
Of course not.
Of course not. Of course not.
Yikes.
And we know we have such a friendly attorney general in Massachusetts that, she would never do anything to make a name for herself.
No, of course not. Especially if she wanted to run for governor after, Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's not go there. I don't want to talk about the governor's office right now. But we will be very shortly, by the way.
Right on.
Because she has to go. It's just crazy. And I will throw in a reminder about that too. That the governor's race is coming up next year, right?
Yep.
So, but that is also the same year that the ballot question will be coming up.
Yes, it is.
And I'm going to say this loud and clear to all these people that just want to sit home: if you're not registered to vote, you don't matter. Period.
There you go.
When it comes to that ballot question and changing the governor, if you're not at least registered to vote, shut up. Go home. You have no say in what's about to happen to you, and it's your fault. And if you believe that my vote doesn't count, there are 700,000 of us in this state. 700,000. And, Toby got, 95,000 people to sign it?
Yeah.
So, okay, you got a year and a half. Get those 700,000 going. If even half of our people voted, we would control every election in this state there.
Yeah. That would be one of the biggest voter turnouts in state's history.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unquestionably.
Yep. Yeah. So every club that's out there, every organization, every Facebook group that's 2A, whatever it is, you guys need to make sure people are registered to vote. And I don't want to hear any excuses. The same people who said back when we were trying to fight this thing, stop all this nonsense in the State House and just file a lawsuit. Yeah, well, how's that working for you now?
Yeah. Yep.
We're filing lawsuits, but have we had a day in court yet? No. And we got some of the best attorneys in the country working on this. So get off your duffs, register to vote. And when it comes time, you don't even have to drive to the polling place anymore. You can vote from home,
Right.
Vote early and vote often. What do they say?
You can put on your dirty T-shirt, your dirty shorts, sit on your couch, crack a Pabst Blue Ribbon, and fill out a form and send it in.
Go get you a PBR, man.
That's right, a PBR. I remember when that was quality stuff. Remember Schlitz?
Ooh.
Yeah, and we won't go Heffenrepper. That's just scary stuff right there. Might as well drink Heffenrepper with MD 2020. Oh, my God.
Hey, listen, man, you don't threaten me with a good time.
That's right.
I feel like Jim's having chemical flashbacks.
That's right. Yeah, it's like 2 days before military payday. Oh, my God, what can I afford? So anyway, there's a lot going on. Yep. I know Toby's starting to gin things up with the coalition, and that's awesome. We'll do everything we can to help them.
Yep, they did their kickoff, which is cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Excellent. So
we got an annual meeting coming up.
We do. Angie ordered bacon. That's all I care about.
Yep. All right. I'll be there.
Yeah. Scheduled to appear at the annual meeting, by the way, is Jay Porter, our federal litigator for the Second Amendment, some of our Second Amendment stuff.
Excellent.
And we've also asked some of the local attorneys, Mr. Hagan and others, Jason, to possibly talk to our folks about the local strategy with some of the other issues. So that'll be pretty cool.
Excellent.
To hear it directly from the horse's mouth, I guess. Yeah.
The horses, I mean, they are lawyers. So if you're a Gold member, you need to go and register on the website, right? Gold.org.
Yep, tickets are available on the website now. You can go there, and they'll have a big brunch. And this won't be a fundraiser type like the big event was. This is a business meeting.
Yep.
But it's also cool because it's usually a small attendance. You know, I mean, what do we have last year? 100 people or so.
Yeah.
Yeah. 75, 100 people. You get to chat with the staff and scream at us in person.
Yeah, right. So in person, screaming at you over the phone. It's much better do it in person. Yeah.
When they say, how come you haven't gone to SCOTUS and just tell them to stop all this nonsense?
Right.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, if it only works.
Did you remind them of the Constitution?
It's like,
shit, I knew I
we didn't
something.
think of that. Why didn't we think of that?
But hey, so although, you know, it's kind of joke, but every once in a while someone comes up and says, well, what about this? And you go, oh, yeah, that's
every once in a while.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was like, you know, for years and years, people would say when we had a good relationship with the State House pre-COVID, you know, stop all this nonsense and just go up there and demand our rights back. Oh, man, I wish I had thought of that 20 years ago. You know what?
I've been doing this the hard way all these years.
Yeah. I could come up on every Wednesday and go, I demand our rights back. Yeah, okay, didn't work. I'll see you next Wednesday. All right, I'll be back. But I get their frustration, and it shouldn't be like this. But we also know that, you know, if you don't continue to fight, look what happens to us around the country.
Right.
It just you lose it.
Yeah.
Because whatever you have for freedom, people want. And they want control and they want power. And that's why we have the Second Amendment. It was put there for a purpose, and that's why they want it gone so badly. So there it is, folks.
There you
go. Your fate is in your hands. And win, lose, or draw, if you don't show up for the fight, I don't want to hear about it.
There's no way to sugarcoat that. If people, you know, registered to vote and showed up, this wouldn't even be a fight.
Again, you don't even have to show up.
Yeah. Yeah, right. All right.
But anyway, that's about it. That was a good 15 minutes.
Yep,
short recap of what the hell's going on.
Sorry, Garrett will take that.
15 minutes.
Garrett will take that scalpel.
That's right. With a scalpel. All right.
This is a 36-inch chainsaw. You know.
All right. The boss, Jim Wallace, Executive Director, Gun Owners Action League. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Yeehaw.
All right, we'll talk to you.
See you, Jim. So there we go. Jim Wallace, Executive Director of Gun Owners Action League. Always good to hear from the source.
So one more time, go to goal.org, get your tickets for the Goal Annual Meeting, which is coming right up. It's going to be 8 days after this podcast releases. So May the 18th, Sunday, May the 18th at Cyprian Keys in Boylston, West Boylston. Get your tickets at goal.org.
Yeah, we'll see you there.
We will see you there. Yeah.
That's it for today. Thanks for listening in. Be sure to subscribe to the Goal Podcast and check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/Goal Podcast MA, on YouTube at the Goal Podcast, or on Twitter, X Twitter, the X formerly known as Twitter, at Goal Update.
To join Goal, visit goal.org and click the Join or Renew button on the top of the homepage.
If you have a topic you think we should cover, if there's something going on in your club or town, if you have a question for the mailbag, shoot us an email at goalpodcast@goal.org.
The Goal Podcast is a production of Gun Owners Action League of Massachusetts. The views and opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect those of Goal, its staff, or affiliates.